Hey guys, it's Kim here and I'm back with another video for you. This is the third video in the travel and tourism series, and we are going to be looking at the advantages and the disadvantages of the tourism industry. Now, just as most things, there are good and there are bad, and it's no different with the travel and tourism industry. I am going to start off with the advantages of the industry. The first advantage I like to mention is the fact that it generates lots of money and creates lots of jobs. So the economic advantage of this industry is huge. That's probably why it is being so highly promoted throughout the world. Not just the Caribbean, but throughout the world. Many governments and agencies spend a lot of money in promoting travel and tourism. Another advantage of this industry will be the cultural aspect of the industry. Now, when someone leaves India and comes to a place, let's say like St. Kitts and Nevis, not only are they coming, right, with their monies in their pocket to spend, but they are also coming with all of the wealth of cultural norms and practices and everything that they left back home in Asia. All right, so when we are looking at all these different things, why the industry is such a big deal, it's one of those reasons too, the fact that we can get to experience different cultures. When tourists visit our shore, we want to make sure the place looks good. So those areas that are highly populated with tourists, when the cruise ship comes in or when people fly in, those are the areas of a particular island that are going to be more developed. They're going to look nicer, it's going to look prettier, and that's because we have to put on a show for when the tourists come. We want to make sure that they have a good time and that they're able to come back. Another advantage of the travel and tourism industry will be for the fact that in some areas we are able to maintain our culture. We are able to make sure that it lives on. That way we can show it off and others can experience it. Kind of like how I mentioned, if someone is coming from India and they're coming here to the Caribbean, they're going to want to experience what it's like to be a Caribbean, right, person. So we want to make sure that we keep our heritage, culture, our practices intact. So that would be an advantage there. Now it's time for us to look at the different disadvantages that are associated with this industry. The travel and tourism industry is a seasonal one. We can expect there to be fluctuations throughout the year. We know and we cannot expect to generate the same amount of income all year round from this industry. For instance, I have some colleagues in New York. I know that they travel a lot when it's cold, when it's snowing. They usually don't travel a lot in the summertime because it's nice and hot, there's nowhere to go. They prefer to be home when it's hot, right? So that is a perfect example of why people may not travel as often, but of course there are different reasons why. But the key thing here is to understand that you cannot expect what happens in January to be the same thing that happens after May. It doesn't happen. The other disadvantage of this industry is the fact that it is service-based. Now, yes, the industry creates lots of jobs, we know it. Hotels need lots of workers. However, I am seeing a trend where the top positions are not usually given to us. People like me, who is a Caribbean person, whether I have the education or the experience, I am not given the top job. So I am not going to be a general manager, maybe not an HR manager, nothing like that. Now, I want to say this. There are instances where people go off to study and they gain the experience and they know someone and they're able to land these positions. There are some instances where people don't go off to study, they may have some experience and they land the position, but those are very rare It is very, very rare that you can actually find a local person who is actually a hotel manager in most of the islands that I visit. They are not generally the general manager. Even if they are the assistant general or maybe something under that like a director, they're not generally the person making the top decisions. Another one of the disadvantages in this industry will be the fact that the environment suffers a lot. Now, there might be 3 hotels that may want to develop, one next year, one the year after, one the following year. Think about the amount of trees, the greens that they would have to cut down. That may eventually lead to soil erosion, pollution, different things. Why? Because we are changing our environment to accommodate visitors who's just going to come, enjoy, and leave. Just another quick note on pollution. Think about the amount of cruise ships that visit our shores each month, and think about how many passengers they have on. Think about where they dump their garbage when they travel. Now, this is just a bonus, and what I wanted to say is the fact that I know I mentioned earlier that if an area is visited highly by tourists, they are generally to get more funding in terms of development and stuff like that. I understand that. However, we must not let this get to the point where other areas around the island may be even more populated in terms of people living there than the tourist areas to suffer. If we get $20,000 in 1 year and we want to put it towards infrastructure development, whatever the case is, it is not fair to pump $20,000 in the tourist area. We have to try to find a way to balance it, whether we do 10 and 10 or 15 and 5 or whatever the case is. We can't just focus on one particular area. Why? You're going to have people who are unhappy. We are going to have bad roads. We are going to have so many different things happening on our island just because we feel that the persons that are in charge are only catering for the tourists in the tourist area by fixing their roads, making sure they have proper lighting and all these things, and they're neglecting the areas in which people live. So 2 things we can do to combat the disadvantages of the industry is to ensure that 1, our people are educated, and 2, that our people are protected. How do we go about educating our people? 1, tourism should be probably the main subject. Of course, besides your English, maths, history, it should be one of our number 1 subjects administered in school, even as little as primary school. That's number 1 in terms of education. Just imagine a student learning the definition of tourism and understanding all the different aspects of tourism before leaving grade 6. And then it continues in first form all the way up to 5th form. That student at the end of high school is going to be a tourism and travel expert, and that's what we need. Now, in order to protect the people, we have to make sure that our leaders understand where we are. We as local, we understand tourism is huge. We understand we get a lot of money from it, but it is the responsibility of those that we elect and those in power to make sure that we are able to take advantage of those opportunities. For instance, I may have an idea as a local to create some type of water sports service, right? Guess what? I really don't have the know-how because I didn't really learn it in school. There are no courses that are readily offered on the island for me to really get the expertise I need. But let's say I just figured it out and I was going to try it anyway because I work for someone and I want to do it. It's very little funding available to locals in order for them to try to start. So we as leaders have to do our best to ensure we put things in place for our locals to become successful. Now look at the reverse side. There might be an international person coming from overseas, because I know this. They look at different places in which has opportunities, and we know tourism is a sure means of money for the Caribbean. So guess what? They leave where they come from with some capital. Sometimes they take a loan, sometimes they have some saved, and they're able to start businesses and generate income from things that we local could have done. And some people might say, locals ain't want to do that, they don't care about that, they don't want to work. We've heard all of that, but I can assure you, if you show a local, a tourist, and that tourist is seen as a green dollar sign of just money walking around, tell me which local would just let that walk by. They would want to grab it, but they don't have the tools to do so. So we have to make sure that they have the tools. That is the only way that we can protect our locals from foreigners who already have the funding, who already have the know-how to get these businesses started and off the ground. Thank you guys so much for watching the entire video. This is the third video in a series of 3 on travel and tourism. If you haven't watched the other 2 videos, you should definitely do so. Please, again, remember to share this video with anyone that you think might find it interested, and remember to subscribe and like to support the channel. Thanks.